So this is going to be the last leg of my adventure this week. Got to take off to Michigan and have an adventure, visit family. Went to the VIR races to see Moto America over the weekend. Cool people out there, a lot of good friends, and some fellow Moto-Men that traveled up to see it. We got to hang out. But I hope you sit and listen to this, because everyone wants to see the action shots and the beautiful pictures and where am I going next and all that happy jazz. Well, this is the story behind it, and it might be a little bit boring. People want those short clips, pop, 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 and hear all the information quick these days. There's just a lot to say. So after we left the races and I got home Sunday, I wake up in the morning and I felt, man, I'm getting ready to go on a big adventure. And the one thing I've been neglecting to do is spend more time with my relatives and my family. Most of them were in Michigan. Let's go to Michigan. So I sat there for a second and said, oh, let me watch a few MotoGP races first. I got that out of the way and got caught up on that. Jumped on my packing regiment about 1 o'clock and headed out about 2:30. Just jumped on the bike, started heading freaking north, not knowing exactly who, what, why, when, or where. And that's what some of the best things about adventures are, is that you never know where it's going to lead you. And that's what's so great about this particular story and how it ends. So I started heading up through the West Virginia area, paying my tolls, which honestly, my God, man, I'm going to avoid tolls because 20% of the gas money I've spent on this trip was what I spent in tolls. It's crazy. But we get through Ohio and into Michigan, riding through the night, having a beautiful, beautiful experience riding through the dark in Michigan, because it's just old farm country roads with empty roads up on the way there. And I find myself getting to a little barn area that I could stay in. I laid my sleeping bag out on the straw, had a good evening sleeping there in the 41-degree weather, but I got to open my eyes to the sun streaming through the barn, through the little porthole for where the birds can come in and out, and all the board spaces. It was just an amazing way to wake up. Then I went and visited my grandmother and my aunt and had breakfast and got to spend a day with them and hang out and kind of regroup and rest up a little bit from that 700-plus mile ride. Then it was time to move along. I had a calling to go to the Mackinac Bridge. I hadn't been there since my dad took me like 28 years ago when we went up to the Isle Royal area. So I really just felt like I needed to go to the Mackinac Bridge. Thought maybe it'd be a cool picture, you know? Oh, talk about cool pictures. The night before I left, something was calling me to ride my bike. I was like, man, I've been on my motorcycle all freaking day and I just got a little bit of rest. I don't need to go and ride around. And I looked out the window and the sunset. I mean, you saw that picture I posted on Facebook. That was just so amazing, because you can't get everything in a picture, you know? We had the little sliver of the moon. We had 3 ducks flying over that you'd have to zoom in and see. So I hear the ducks quacking. There was a turkey gobbling. Sandhill cranes making that crazy prehistoric sound as they're flying through. And it was just this whole peaceful, out in the middle of freaking nowhere, in the middle of 500 acres with no sounds, just nature. So that just made me just sit there, enjoy, and cry for a minute and realize, man, this is what I came up here for. So I think. But then we take off the Mackinac Bridge, and it was so freaking cold and wet up there. I didn't realize how cold it was going to be, and it was abnormally cold for Michigan. But I'll stop at the Mackinac Bridge, taking some pictures, and a guy walking around pacing circles around my motorcycle. So I rushed back over there to see what he's got going on. He's like, hey, Virginia, where are you from in Virginia? And I said, oh, Roanoke, just taking a trip up here. He said, yeah, me too. Doing a little guided tour. So I'm from Danville. I said, by God, I was in Danville just 3 days ago, hanging out watching the races. He said, yeah, I do that too, because I'm only 10 minutes away. So I appreciate that. I got to meet another Virginian and hear his story. He heard my story. Then we crossed over the bridge. Boy, it was under construction. So the grates are pretty horrendous when you have knobby tires on. The big blocks were just right the same size as what the grading was. So when I catch your tire and throw you around, you just whoa, the whole way across the bridge. And you gotta go slow, but it wasn't windy at all. I get across the bridge, jump on off 75, go up 123, pull over to a gas station, get some petrol before I head up to the Upper Peninsula to see Lake Superior. Lady at the gas station started giving me warnings about how the wind's going to be picking up, and there's a big storm coming from the northwest. So I need to get my butt back across the bridge while I can. I didn't heed my warning and I started cruising on anyway. I gotta complete my mission. But I was like, maybe she's got a good point. Let's shorten it up a little bit. I pull over, and there's a little dirt road that I'm pulling over at to check my GPS, find a different route. Kind of looked at some of the names of the roads. There weren't a lot of them. And when I look up, I see a brown sign. It's barely legible. Recreational Road, National Forest Service. I don't know it until I met Tom last night, but those are all snowmobile roads. And it looked beautiful and manicured, so I said, let's do it. Let's get the adventure on. Just be careful, Nate, because there's nobody here. There are no cars. If I wreck, I'm done. There's no one to help me. And there's no cell phone reception. So I start down this thing, and it gets a little bit worse, and a little bit worse, and then it's snow and ice covered and big mud holes, and I'm like, oh boy, I got this now. I got my Kindles on, baby. Let's do it. Start fishing across, and boom! I just lost the front and the rear. I said, here we freaking go. I'm sliding sideways, spinning the rear freaking tire, pushing the front, and then a hand came up and grabbed my freaking collar. And I know it was my brother Strange looking out for me, man. He got me on two wheels. He pulled me up and erect. I pushed through and make it through the rest of this dirt road, and that's when I realized my navigation has no signal anymore. So, trying to use my memory and what map I was still visible on the screen, and I went towards this little lake called East Lake and just cruised through the most picturesque. That's my biggest regret of this trip, is I didn't take pictures of the Upper Peninsula. I was too awestruck to stop and take a picture. Plus I was in a little bit of a hurry, so I thought I'll just skedaddle on through. Went over to East Lake and then found another dirt road that took me over to Trout Lake, and that's where things got really weird, because the road was like that. It's just, you're gonna jump through the freaking trees of what it said was a road. I said, well, this might be my turnaround point. The winds are really picking up now, and I need to get back to the bridge. I was really scared about that part. I'm honestly truly scared to cross the bridge with the winds on the grates, with the knobbies. But we made it back to the bridge, and I'm pulling up to pay my toll, and she says, hey, you're on a motorcycle. I said, oh, well, yeah. She said, you got to pull over there. I'm like, oh, God, what, are they going to search me or something? She's like, no, they got to do an escort because of the high winds. So I had to sit behind some other tractor trailers and get escorted across like 13 to 20 miles an hour, which was even harder for me to do slow speed riding along that long bridge on these grates, throwing my bike everywhere.
In 1 mile, keep right onto Prince Edward Highway.
Well, thank you. And we start getting across the bridge, and it is probably the scariest thing, because every time a car passes you, they block the wind, so you stand back up, and then boom, you're blown back over again. A car comes by, boom, then a tractor trailer. So it was probably one of the scariest things, especially when you can stand up and look down 350 feet of freezing cold water below you. You're not going to make it. You know, even if you survive the fall, which was probably not going to happen, you're going to end up with hypothermia, sinking to the bottom of the lake. So we get back across. I'm heading down the road and stop to take some pictures that you saw on Facebook. Beautiful, beautiful. Put some more cold weather gear on, put my little neck collar on, because it was getting a little bit more rainy at that point in time. The storm was coming in. Start going further south, and I stopped outside of Cadillac to call my uncle, who I was going to visit down in Benton Harbor with my grandmother. He's like, man, I gotta get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at that time it was like 8.
Keep right onto Prince Edward Highway.
Sorry about that. Let me just end that. What was it, like 8:30? He's like, man, I gotta get up at 3 in the morning and go to work, so I can't really host you tonight. I said, you know what? This is the start of my adventure. This is what I came up here to do. I want to start getting more comfortable, being out of my element, talking to random strangers, and see those nice acts of kindness that I've always aspired to find, and what I wanted to do and prepare myself for when I'm on the actual big trip to the Arctic Circle. Sitting there eating the Subway at the gas station, just waiting for it to happen, and a man is outside looking at my motorcycle. He walks back to his truck, and he grabs his camera, takes a picture, and then walks in. Like, hey, that must be your motorbike. And I said, hey, you must be the guy I've been waiting for. He's like, what? So said, yeah, I'm on a trip, got nowhere to go, nowhere to stay, so I was hoping maybe I'd run into a stranger and they could help me out. He says, well, I'm from out of town too, so I can't help you. But what I can do is call my friend down in Benton Harbor, see if I can get you hosted up with him. And he did that, and they had some arrangements coming, but the guy was so thoughtful. He got a little bit further down the road, checked the radar, and said, Nate, he called me back because he got my number, and he's like, Nate, you're not going to make it, man. You got a 3-hour trip. You got 2 hours before a horrendous storm comes through, which you guys saw on some of the pictures I put on the Facebook that I had to brave anyway. And that night, when I was talking to him on the phone, a gentleman walks up playing some banging music in his big old truck, and I was like, man, that's some good music, because I knew the song is one of my favorite EDM songs. He's like, that's a nice bike. Besides that, 1200, man. He walks in the store, gets an energy drink, comes back out, and I said, hey, man, I could really use your help if you got a warm barn or something I can stay in. You heard my conversation about this storm coming. I don't have anywhere to go. And he says, I think I can work that out. So you can tell the hesitation of a stranger wanting to come into your home for the night. And I followed him down some dirt roads. He says, I just live 10 miles that way. We go down some asphalt, and then we turn into dirt. And then we go and pull into his house and pull in his garage to protect the motorbike. We hang out, and his friends were over there and having a good time. So we just hung around, partied a little bit, talked, and told them my mission, and learned a little bit about them. Not too much, because I'm not trying to be inquisitive. I want people to volunteer information. I don't want to sit there and question people and put them in an interview, you know? Just act normal, as I said. Just do what you normally do. So we went out to his workshop where he had some cars to work on and hung out, listened to music, sharing what the kind of culture I come from, what kind of culture he comes from, and how they got to drive 10 miles to get to a gas station, or it's like 20 minutes to get to the closest like grocery store and such, and how they live and grew up together, and how my life is. So they got curious about what it's like living down in Virginia, and we got to share some great stories. And that was my man Nate. And dude, that was super cool, and we're gonna stay in touch. I hope you do come down and visit me, and I'm gonna come back up and visit you guys for some more fun, because man, we got out there doing burnouts in the middle of the country and romping down dirt roads, doing the good old boy thing, and that was the highlight of my trip to that point, man. So I get up in the morning, take off, because they had to go to work, and I start heading towards Benton Harbor, where there was tons of rain. I mean, this was so soaking wet rain. And I braved through that because I wanted to see my grandmother, you know? I get to see her, I get there about 11:30, we get to hang out, she gets her hair done, we hang out and talk while she's getting her hair done, got to go visit her for in Melvin and see how he was doing, check out his cabin, and then I got to roll on over 10-15 minutes down the road to my Uncle Mike that I haven't seen since, I think probably before we went down the beach on a talk before I joined the Marine Corps. And I felt really bad. I haven't seen my family in that long. And I'm glad that everything that he's doing in his life has been so positive for him lately, that getting over some things that he had trouble with as a veteran that served at 173rd Airborne in Vietnam. And he told me more stories. And then he told me stories about the family. I said, keep going, buddy. I want to hear more. This next is my dad. I want to sit down in a canoe and heck him give me all those crazy stories. I never knew that my grandfather, my uncle, and my father, all three had GTOs, all set up with different gearing, different bodies, different engines, different carburetors, you know, and they'd go out and romp around and race each other. Oh man, I never knew my dad was doing 150 miles an hour in a GTO before. So that's like the most amazing thing about sitting down and just listen. Just listen to other people. Don't talk. He didn't care. I mean, he cared. He didn't really listen to my stories as much as I came to listen to his stories. So he took advantage of that and just kept going and going. And I would say, another topic, let's go on to something else. And he got stories about that. And it was just a spectacular time. Got up super early in the morning, started heading back down because I wanted to visit Richmond, which you saw yesterday. Got down to Departure Bike Works and didn't have anywhere to stay, obviously. My buddy Tom, he had another Marine son-in-law, and he was a Navy demolition diver. Badass dude, I love him. I met him at the shop many times. He'd always come in and tell me great stories, and we always have a good time. Very well-mannered, awesome demeanored individual. And I got his message while I was stopped, kind of like, God, what am I going to do tonight? I guess I'm going to go to Chili's. I haven't been to one of those in a freaking decade. I'll sit in there at the bar and eat my food, because that's how you meet people. You can't sit at a table and meet somebody. So I sat there eating some food, and a guy walks up, that was sitting there already. He's like, hey, what's happening? Talk a little bit, bought me a shot, bought my dinner, because we told about the mission that we were on, and took off. So that was a blessed moment. And then right when he took off, that's when Tom hit me up and was like, hey, we've got a place for you to stay here outside of Richmond if you want to come hang out with us. So we did that and told some old stories over at his place and hung out later than we probably should have, but that's what it's all about, telling stories. Got back in the morning because I was going to go visit a gentleman I met at VIR that I sold a bike to a few years ago and see what he's all about, because he's got a little motorcycle club down here. But I didn't hear back from him in the morning after we had talked a little bit, so I just drove downtown Richmond for some reason. And this is where the story gets crazy for me, because I had nowhere to go, and I just put Richmond. It takes you to Broad Street. I get to Broad Street and I'm like, okay, now what? I mean, what's next? And I went up one block and there's a homeless gentleman sitting on the side of the road with a lady, and they're just happy as can be, chilling out, laughing and joking. I said, man, I need to go talk to you. This is why I'm here. You know, God dangled a carrot in front of me that I knew I couldn't resist, and sent me back to Richmond, and when I already had gone on the outskirts of it. And it's funny how that works. That was the dangling carrot to get me to go back there to meet these people. And I've never sat down and just talked for an hour with homeless individuals, and it made me just sit there and cry with them. And he says, man, you're crying. And he reached in his backpack and gave me a tissue and talked to me and told me his story and how things were great. Lived in New Jersey, moved down to Richmond to do construction, and then construction just stopped. He worked with heavy equipment, and then it, boom, gone. And it's like, why didn't you go back to New Jersey? And he's like, well, my family really didn't, we didn't have a good relationship. They didn't want me to come back. So here I am. And now he says he is the knight of the road. He works the roughest corner in Richmond. And as we were sitting there talking about that, he's got some vans that roll up and people jump out and hand him food. And it's like, oh man, this is awesome. You're going to be taken care of now. He's like, yeah, well, this is for you. You're hungry. I said, no, I'm not going to eat your food. They're here for you. I can go buy food. And he said, well, I'm not eating it. I got some friends that need it more than me. And you can tell, you knew he's hungry. You knew he had nothing. But he's so selfless. It's amazing how caring and selfless someone that could lose absolutely everything. And now his mission is to be the knight of the road on the roughest section. So he's been beat up and hit with bats and knocked out and all kinds of stuff. People are stealing his stuff, but he still stays there because there's other people on that corner that he needs to help. So a few of his other friends came up, and one of them came rolling up on a little rascal scooter, and he had a Marine Corps cover on. And that's kind of what brought me to the individual in the first place. He was wearing a Marine Corps cover, and I said, you're a Marine? Right when I got there, he said, no, I'm homeless. I never served. I just had a Marine come by and give me this hat one time, So now another individual rolls up with a USMC hat, and I said, well, you're a Marine. He said, yeah, I was in communications. I said, awesome, me too. What'd you do? He was a 59. I said, I was a 59. This is awesome. And at that moment, I realized why. Something in Indiana happened. I stopped at a gas station, and a young man just felt compelled to tell me that he is going to be joining the Marine Corps July 5th, 2019 to start his adventure. We talked about that a bit, and then I told him what I'm doing, and we went over to the ATM and got money out of the ATM and gave me a $20 bill. I said, this is for you to help those people. And I carried that in my pocket for over 600 miles. Not knowing where it's going to go, I thought I was just going to put it into an account with everything else and put it towards our $10,000 mission. But that one was meant for those guys right there. I said, another guy that's aspiring to be a Marine gave me this money, and this is where it's supposed to be. Because this can complete the story in one trip. This will be kind of my first opportunity to truly take some money and directly affect somebody else's life. Well, you know what? They refused it. Like, I don't want your money. There's somebody else that your organization can give that to. I said, no, this is why I'm here. This is why I've been sitting on the ground with you, talking to you, hearing your guys' stories and crying with you and laughing with you and all the good stuff. That was really an amazing experience. And it made me cry after I left. Still, like an hour down the road, it's amazing how happy and caring and selfless these people are that lost absolutely everything. So that's the completion of the trip, man. It's a funny way that things guide you into places that you don't expect. And I was going home last night, and I was going to go home this morning, but something said I need to go back to Richmond. A guy hit me up and then didn't hit me back up. Well, it's probably hitting me up now. Good God, I'm back home. But if you're ever on Broad, and I think it was Belvedere, right downtown Roanoke, stop and tell them that Moto Nate sent you. You want to take them a bit of food. They don't like to take money. They're just hungry. They might want some ponchos, because I said, what are you going to do when it rains? Like, we get wet. That's what we do. So, if you're in that area and you see this man that was on my picture on Facebook, he's the knight of Richmond. Been there for years, protecting others, helping them, sharing what the churches bring and give to him with others that need it more than him. He finally took that $20. He opens his wallet and he's got one wrinkly dollar bill in there. And now he's got 21 thanks to my friend up in Indiana and wanted to help out another veteran. And he says, this is how we do it. We have to share. You can't just give the money to one person. When I tried to give it to the other Marine, he says, you got to give it to the knight. And he makes sure it's appropriated evenly and goes to the right things. And it's compelling. I hope that changes somebody's life. I mean, it changed mine. Look at me go. I'm weak, scared, crying, worried about my future, where I'm going to go to make the next paycheck. They don't have that opportunity. I'm worried about if my steak's cooked right, even though I haven't been eating steak lately, obviously. But, the toll road was too expensive, or, my tires aren't lasting enough on my $20,000 motorcycle. And these guys have absolutely nothing. And they're so strong. And that's what this trip's going to teach me, and hopefully help other people with. One day, this trip will make me a strong man again. I feel weak and lost, but unfortunate things happen for a reason, and sometimes they help you out. Like Tom was saying, bigger and better things can be coming to you in the future. And that's usually what happens. One door closes, another door's open. And I appreciate his mentorship last night. An opportunity to hang out with him and his family as we sat around the table and talked about motorcycling. Talked about his adventures and dogs. His beautiful cat Odin, which I miss my pussycats. That's what I want to get home to. So I'm going to start heading that away. And I hope you enjoyed this. If it doesn't come out too good doing audio, my wind socks are in stock back home finally, so I'm going to start having a little bit more vlogging going on that is more recognizable, audible. Go out there, sit down and do something you're uncomfortable with. I just sat at gas stations and talked to random strangers out of my comfort zone usually. I'd sit down and pull over and just lay in the streets with the homeless for an hour and live a life with them. That's things that people never think about doing. They're too busy watching a big screen TV and eating steak and getting in their fancy car after pulling it out of their garage to their awesome house. And just think about those in need for a little bit. If you can do one good deed and spread it, that one good deed I might have done giving him just a little bit of my time, and just $20 is going to help many of his friends down there. I'm sure they're going to put it to good use for something that they need. Maybe some ponchos for the storm that's about to come, or whatever they do. It's always good to watch somebody else smile off your generosity. So I'm checking out. Stay tuned for more Moto.Men action as we continue traveling the country, trying to save the world one day at a time. That's a hard feat, but spreading the good, spreading the love, sharing the adventure, inspiring others. Nate from Moto.Men out.